I've been asked many times if one can paint acrylics over oil paints, so in today's video I'll take my speed painting recipe to the next level. But before that I start off by base coating every part of the model in its corresponding color. And it is important since I'll darken down everything later to stay in either the brighter or pale side of the colors. My paint is slightly diluted with water, somewhere around 2 parts paint to 1 part water, and I make use of 2 thin coats to achieve an homogeneous result. The brush I'm using is an old number 2, which has lost its tip already, and is now relegated to be the base coating brush, so I can save my newer brushes for more fine work. No matter your painting level, you should be able to follow up to this point, since what I've been doing so far is just to paint within the lines. But even if your base coat was a little sloppy, don't worry, since the next step will both hide those imperfections as well as provide some definition between each part of the model in order to make it more readable. I'll mix green and black oil paints with a pinch of brown to make a more earthy tone alongside some white spirits or solvents. I use the artist type, which are odorless. Both them and my oils are from a national brand, nothing fancy, so don't feel pressure to go get the high-end stuff if you want to try oil paints out. I'll apply this concoction over all of the model, and I know this might look scary since it looks nothing like a conventional wash, but don't worry, like I explained on my oil washing masterclass, what I'm doing now is a heavy wash, with the aim of making the model look dirty. The main benefit of oil paints is the ability to be able to be cleaned off to our desire. But before that, we have to let them get a slight grip on the model, though they won't actually fully dry. So I'll leave the model to the side and come back to it in an hour, which will end up looking something like this. Now that some of the solvent has evaporated, I'll soak a Q-tip in white spirits, remove the excess in a paper towel, and with it begin the unpainting. We want to be gentle, by rolling and poking the Q-tip, so it reactivates and absorbs the paint from the raised details, while leaving the recesses untouched. It is not a solvent that would lift up the acrylic underneath, but a scratching motion. Now, the Q-tip won't be able to get into every nook and cranny, and that's fine. You see, the wash, while quite heavy, did behave like any other wash would, pulling mostly on the recesses while staining the raised details. On any hard-to-reach areas, we'll be left with the accumulation of oils into the recesses and a staining on the flatter or raised details. But on any areas facing outwards or exposed, we can influentiate by adding an extra layer of color, or rather removing paint to let the color shine through. What I've shown you so far is my go-to grim-dark speed painting method, all in all base coating and then moving a Q-tip around the model. No edge highlighting, brush control or complicated techniques required. But the paint job doesn't have to stop there. Oil paints are famous for taking days to dry, but not when miniature painting, where the accumulated oil paint is very small. While I can't give you an exact time, I can assure you that after leaving this heavy wash overnight, it was ready to be painted over the next day. Since I made use of a heavy wash which stained the surfaces quite a bit, unlike on my last video where I completely cleaned off the oils from the raised details, I went back to the base tone for the highlights. Since this model was a character, I took my time with it, using the number 1 brush and the same 2:1 paint to water consistency as before, so the paint flows smoothly from my brush and helps me achieve this scratchy style of highlight I'm going for. In order to preserve my brush, you'll see I'm keeping the paint within the top half of the bristles. If paint were to accumulate inside of the ferrule, it would cause the brush to split. While I am taking my time with this one, that doesn't mean I'm just highlighting all of the model. Just like I avoided the hard to reach areas with the Q-tip while cleaning, I'll focus my highlights not only on the more exposed and raised details, but also on the more eye-catching or defining elements, such as the ropes, the tail, and the fur to name a few, while the more intricate details such as the book I'll be leaving as they are. And I am not just limited to a scratchy style of highlights. On the horns, I instead made use of a series of glazes to get a smooth transition from light to dark. While I was tempted to add a further layer of highlights, I decided against it since in the end this is a gaming model. And when it comes to painting many miniatures, we have to be able to identify when to stop and be satisfied with a good job, not stressing about it being perfect. Thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you learned something useful from it. Like always, special thanks to my patrons Old and New who made this video possible. But that is all for today. Hope to see you again next week.